and welcome to your Spooktober content already in progress. Today is another franchise ranking. Today I will be ranking the Fright Night films. I watched all of these films during my marathon last year, and so I thought it would be nice to rank them this year. So time for me to sink my teeth into these movies. In fourth place is Fright Night 2, also known as Fright Night 2 New Blood. It was released in 2013 and directed by Eduardo Rodriguez and written by Matt Benet. It is a direct-to-video sequel to the 2011 remake of the 1985 film, and in it Charlie and Evil Ed must stop a vampire/sexy professor from drinking and bathing in the blood of a new moon virgin, which just so happens to be Charlie's ex-girlfriend Amy. They enlist help from Peter Vincent, the vampire hunting host of a reality show called Fright Night, to drive a stake through Jerry's plan and save Amy from a fate far worse than death. If this was its own film, I would say it's kind of cool, especially because I've always been fascinated by the story of Elizabeth Bathory, and so I enjoy when films depict her, and I think making her a vampire and the way this film did so is interesting. But, and that's a big but, how in the hell can you call this Fright Night 2 when it is not remotely a sequel to the remake in anything but the title? It's actually a remake of the remake, which has me kind of pissed off. We have the same character names, all new actors, all new story. Jerry is now a woman and Elizabeth Bathory on top of that. Evil is alive again so he can be killed again. How did they get away with calling this Fright Night 2? Seriously, actually, this isn't just a remake, it's a reboot, and I don't know how they got away with it. On the plus side, I do love Jamie Murray. She is gorgeous, and I love when she plays sadistic characters because she does them so incredibly well. The film did copy a couple ideas from the first film, like the clocks for example, but overall this was not a good film and it makes no sense as a sequel. Because in story-wise, it's not. In third place is Fright Night, released in 2011 and directed by Craig Gillespie with a screenplay by Marty Noxon. It's a remake of the 1985 film of the same name and follows a teenage boy who discovers that his neighbor is actually a vampire, which culminates in a battle between the two. It's not a terrible film, but I'm honestly not a fan. I don't particularly like many of the changes made for the remake, and some of the things they kept don't make sense for the remake. They made this version darker, but in making it darker, it made the comedy feel out of place and unnecessary. I just find it hard to stay engaged in this film. I also didn't enjoy how much of a sexual predator they made Jerry in this film, though I am happy to learn Colin Farrell didn't like this about his character either and made protests that went unheard. I did think it was cool having Chris Sarandon make a cameo in this film though, but it's also just sad looking back on this because it just reminds me of how young Anton Yelchin was when he passed, and he was a talented actor. We lost him way too young. In second place is Fright Night Part 2, released in 1988 and directed by Tommy Lee Wallace and written by Wallace, Tim Metcalf and Miguel Tejada Flores. It is the sequel to the 1985 film and focuses on Charlie Brewster, who, now a college student, encounters a group of vampires led by a beautiful woman who is seeking him out. This is a pretty decent sequel, and it's well thought out and a good continuation of the previous film, and I like how the two connect. It's not as good as the first one, but it is still decent, but it doesn't feel as memorable as the first either. I like how the antagonist is female and has a connection to the previous film, but they could have given more to her character, at least in terms of dialogue, and it's a shame they didn't. Some elements felt a bit repetitive, but overall it was still an enjoyable watch, but as I said, not as memorable as the first. And in lucky first place, because am I even surprising anybody at this point? No, I'm pretty much not, is Fright Night. Released in 1985 and directed by Tom Holland in his directorial debut, it follows young Charlie Brewster, who discovers that his next-door neighbor Jerry Dandridge is a vampire. When no one believes him, Charlie decides to get Peter Vincent, a TV show host who acted in films as a vampire hunter, to stop Jerry's killing spree. Prior to last year, I'd seen the remake but not the original, and honestly, for whatever reason, didn't think I'd like it, but this movie's awesome. I love the vampire makeup for this movie, mostly because it's so far removed from the norm of what we expect for vampires, though it did kind of remind me of demons in Demon Knights, which I also happen to like. Some of the vampire powers and characteristics are different, which I also like. It changes it up, but not too much, just enough where it's familiar but also stands out. This was a ton of fun, but all vampires out there, I hope you'll know, hypnosis doesn't count as consent. It seems strange that the remakes seem to focus so much on this one specific aspect of the film, where Jerry comes off very much like a sexual predator when it comes to Amy as opposed to a vampiric one. Watching that scene in the 21st century is a bit uncomfortable, but it just boggles the mind that the remake took that element and ran with it and intensified it, where they really wanted to portray Jerry as a sexual predator. I just don't understand the logic behind that. Nevertheless, this is a really fun movie and I really enjoyed it. And there you have my ranking of the Fright Night films. Yes, I have once again just ranked them in order 4 to 1. But that's because for me, in this case and the other cases when I do this, I felt that each installment they get worse. But now that you've heard my thoughts and feelings, I want to know yours. So comment down below and tell me if you have seen all these films and how you would rank them. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you are having an awesome October, and if you want more spooky content this month, then subscribe to my channel for the Halloweeny videos I'll be dropping. Thank you as always to my fabulous patrons who had advance access to this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Stay spooky.